All right, we're on to chapter 3 of the ChessGoals Catalan course. We're going to look at the Bogo Indian lines. These are lines where black checks us with bishop to b4. We're starting off with the regular move order: d4, knight f6, c4, e6, pawn to g3. We're going to look at lines where black plays d5 and then bishop to b4 check, and then we'll wrap up with a few lines where black starts with bishop to b4 check. But keep in mind that these tend to transpose. So they're going to transpose to the first move 3 d5 lines that we cover, and we'll cover just a couple additional lines that don't transpose. All right, so start with d5 here. And in this position, we're recommending the standard bishop to g2. We played g3, we want the bishop on g2, bishop to b4 check. And here, bishop to d2 is the most popular move. This is a good option. And in the ChessGoals annotated games that come with this course, you will see bishop d2 played. I think that knight to d2 is actually the better practical choice, and I'll give you a couple of reasons why. I find bishop to d2 hard to play in practice. I don't quite get the positions I want in the Catalan with bishop to d2. That's number one. Number two is this scores well at the club level. Number three is the bishop for knight trade almost always favors white, right? So by putting the knight on d2, we're saying, okay, why is your bishop on b4? Yes, you maybe made us put the knight on an awkward square, but sometimes the knight belongs on d2, as we've seen in other lines. It's not necessarily a bad move, knight to d2. But as soon as black takes on d2, we can take with queen or bishop usually. Then we establish this bishop pair imbalance where we get the two bishops for black's one bishop. So that's what I like about knight d2, and I think it's going to be offbeat enough too that it will kind of confuse the opponent. So we're going to look at some blunders for black here as well. All right, so the main move is 5 castling. And at this point, we're going to recommend pawn to a3, putting the immediate question to this bishop. And what we want to do is make black kind of regret checking us with bishop to b4 check. The best option for black is bishop back to e7, and everything else is going to give us a slight advantage. So we're going to start with bishop e7, and then we'll look at those other lines as well. Okay, bishop to e7. Now we'll play knight f3, continue with our kingside development. On to c5 by black. This is sort of like a Tarrasch structure, but if you look at the addition of black's bishop to b4 and retreating back, and our knight to d2, I think you could argue that this favors us. Pawn on a3 is kind of a good piece. It's supporting b4. This knight defends c4. So everything looks okay in terms of the things that we've added in this position. So here we're recommending d takes c5. And the imbalance we're playing for is the bishop pair. So these two guys. And both bishops on long diagonals. So we want these bishops to be very active. We want the bishops open long term, create some weaknesses in black's structure. And bishop to b7 is not going to be easy to play for black, because when the d5 pawn moves, then our bishop actually hits the b7 square. Let's look at bishop takes c5. That's the most common move in the database. It's a slight inaccuracy though. We can play pawn to b4, taking this bishop, and now we have a clear advantage. Bishop retreats, bishop to b2. How many times has this bishop moved already? I lost track. 1, 2, 3, 4 times, I think. The bishop is not doing a great job on e7. And look at this queenside expansion we got in this strong placed bishop, and our knight actually likes sitting on d2 because it keeps this bishop free down the diagonal. There's no knight on c3. Knight to c6 by black. Here we castle. Computer says we're up 1.5 points here. 1.5 stockfish points. In the database, white's winning 61%. Black is winning 29%. So all of these things favor us. Eval, in practice, and just eye test, right? Look at the position. It just looks great for white. Pawn to b6. Black is trying to get that bishop developed on the long diagonal. Makes a lot of sense. Here we play rook c1. And what you can do here is always think of ways to bring new pieces into the game. And the rook on c1 eyes the knight on c6, opens up c takes d5 threats. This is something that I've been working on in my own game. So say you don't have this position memorized. I've been working on in my own game. Try to keep developing new pieces. I know it sounds like a rule just for beginners, right? Develop each piece. Don't move pieces twice. It matters at all levels. Like, you should default to bringing new pieces in as quickly as possible. Rook C1 is doing exactly that. You're bringing that rook in from A1. I see a lot of players play moves like knight G5 or knight E5, right? Moving pieces twice and just trying to make something happen with the knights or the bishops because they're more active. Bring those rooks in the game. Get that rook on C1. Potential open file coming soon. Bishop to B7 by black. And here we recommend C takes D5. If E takes D, we're going to go knight B3, and there's an isolated pawn. Then we cover the square in front of it. So that's kind of that standard isolated pawn position that looks really good for us. Queen takes D5, we have knight E5. That wins material. Bishop hits the queen, and C6 is triple attack. The only move for black really is knight takes D5, unless they want that IQP, which is not recommended. Now we go E4. Kick the knight, gain some extra space. Knight back to F6. And here we park our queen on E2. Nice safe square. Defending the pawn on E4. Connecting the rooks. The eval here is 2.1. So plus 2.1. 2 pawns of positional advantage. And that's thanks to our superior queen, rooks, bishops, and extra space. And the black queen in particular is giving some issues for the opponent. Look at the black queen. She's on one of the 2 open files. Where is she going to hide? She doesn't have any great squares. Black's pieces are all blocking the potential squares for her. Our plans here are to play rook f to d1. You want to play knight c4, pawn to e5, and really just try to squeeze the opponent's position. Squeeze their pieces. Don't give them a chance to put pieces on good squares. That's the plan here. So that's line number 1. We're looking at a 2.1 stockfish advantage, so leaving you with a great position. Let's go back to move 7. And instead of c5, we will look at pawn to b6 here.